Yo, let's keep it rolling. 2 chapters a day. You know what I mean? For my people. This one is the law of compassion. All right. A tale of transformation in this piece. Right? The law of compassion, awakening our humanity. Okay? The universe does not judge us. It only provides consequences and lessons and opportunities to balance and learn through the law of cause and effect. Compassion is the recognition that we are each doing the best we can within the limits of our current beliefs and capacities. Okay. That I feed the hungry, forgive and insult, and love my enemy. These are great virtues. But what if I should discover that the poorest of the beggars and the most impudent of offenders are all within me, and that I stand in need of the alms of my own kindness, that I myself am the enemy who must be loved? What then? And that's by Carl Jung. Like, yo, I gotta read it. I gotta read it again. That I feed the hungry, forgive an insult, and love my enemy. These are great virtues. But what if I should discover that the poorest of the beggars and the most impudent of offenders are all within me, and that I stand in need of all of the alms of my own kindness, that I myself am the enemy who must be loved? What then? Gazing over a small fire, I could see the flames reflected in the sage's eyes. Her face, now illuminated by the firelight, appeared ageless except for a few lines around the eyes. From smiling, I suppose. She smiled often, so that even when she seemed deeply serious, I could detect an underlying sense of humor and perspective. After we spent some time in silence, gazing into the burning embers, she invited me outside to learn the law of compassion. We rose together and stepped through the doorway. I looked around in wonder. Had the terrain changed again, or was it a trick of the moonlight? Before us lay a level area with enough trees to offer shelter from a misting rain that settled the day's dust and carried a pleasant, earthy odor of bark and leaves mixed with soil and grasses. Everything feels so alive, I remarked. And it is so, she responded as she caressed the rough bark of a nearby tree. In the light of a waxing moon, the rolling hills became curves on the earth's body. Extend your mind far beyond these hills, she continued. Reach across the oceans, the fjords, the volcanoes, the reefs, the towering mountains above and beneath the sea, all teeming with life, all of it. The flesh and bones, the blood and spirit of the earth, our mother. She held up her finger to show me a tiny flea, which leaped up and disappeared. If you were a flea, she said, standing on the back of an elephant, you would see only a forest of great hairs growing around you, with no idea of what you actually stood upon. But if you leapt high into the if you leapt high into the air and looked back, you'd see that you actually lived on the skin of a living creature. This is what happened to astronauts who first soared into space. They left Earth as scientists and pilots and came back as mystics. And Elon Musk, no, I'm kidding, it didn't say that. Because they saw the vision of a single, glorious, sacred, blue, green, living, breathing planet. This vision brings humility, and with it, a sense of awe and compassion that carries into the affairs of ordinary life. Just as you can learn to balance from an egret and presence from a cat, you can learn the law of compassion from the earth whose skin we tread, whose trees we cut and burn, whose living wealth we exploit, going about our business without ever thinking of asking permission or giving thanks. The sage looked up into the night sky. For many centuries I've spoken with the earth. I know her heart, and I say to you that she understands in a way so deep and profound that tears would come to your eyes if you could ever but touch the edges of her compassion. The earth forgives us because she knows that we are flesh of her flesh. We are a part of her that is still learning and growing. And so I ask you this, she continued, squatting down, taking some rich soil in her hands and letting it run through her fingers. If the earth can forgive you for your mistakes, can you not forgive yourself and offer others the same compassion? I lay back and looked up at the starry sky. I don't think I'm all that good at compassion. You don't give much of it to yourself, do you? She asked gently. No, I don't suppose I do. Then that's where to begin. The more loving kindness you give to yourself, the more you can give to others. She rose and walked back inside the hut. I followed, gazing at me over the crackling fire. With light in her eyes, the sage revealed the heart of this law. The time has come, traveler, for you to see yourself and others in a new way, free of judgment and expectations that come between you and this world. The time has come to understand that all of us, friends and adversaries alike, are doing the best we know how within the limits of our beliefs and capacities. I'm going to read that again. The time has come to understand that all of us, friends and adversaries alike, are doing the best we know how within the limits of our beliefs and capacities. The poet Rumi once wrote, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Rumi could write about these words because he understood that judgments are a human invention, that God is not here to judge us, but to provide us the means to learn from our errors so that we can grow and evolve. The sage turned to me and asked, if you can accept that God doesn't judge you, why should you judge others? I tried not to judge others, I said, but what about violent or cruel people? The law of compassion is not arbitrary or conditional, she said. We know that deeply troubled and destructive people do exist in this world, and that disturbed people tend to disturb others. Compassion doesn't mean letting such people walk over you or continue their destructive behaviors. Some individuals need to be separated from society, but one can have compassion for evil without succumbing to it. In battle, you can feel compassionate towards your adversaries even when fighting to the death. But why feel compassion for cruel or despicable people? Why not just hate what is hateful? That is an important question and deserves a clear answer, an answer you must find for yourself. But consider this, hate and compassion are different kinds of energy. Which do you want to fill your world? I can't argue with your goodwill, I responded, but I still find it very difficult to feel kindly towards bigots or those who prey on children. I never said that compassion was easy, she said, but easy or not, the law directs you to act out of love and understanding rather than out of hatred or ignorance. To do so requires a leap to a larger perspective, to the realization that you live in a universe as just as mysterious as it is mysterious. This depth of understanding flows from intuitive insight into inherent intelligence of the universe. Whether you find such understanding through observation, reason, or religious faith, it reveals finally that in the natural world you have no friends, you have no enemies, you have only teachers. It seems like one has to be a saint to practice this law. Smiling, she answered, the law of compassion presents a loving demand to transcend our limited perspectives. This can feel overwhelming at times, so remember that compassion starts with yourself. Be gentle and patient. We each have many thoughts and feelings, both positive and negative, that arise in mind and heart. You don't have to be a saint, but instead of believing or resisting negative thoughts, let compassion wash them away in a wave of love and understanding. It still sounds pretty saintly. The sage stood and paced for a few moments before turning to face me. Can you remember a time in your life when you were in the midst of a heated argument, when you felt resentful, envious, or betrayed? Yes, I said. Go back to one of those times, she said, and feel the pain and anger. Okay, I feel it. Now imagine in the midst of this heated argument that the person you're arguing with suddenly clutches on her heart, utters a cry, and falls dead at your feet. My God, I said, picturing what she just asked. Where's your anger now? Where's your envy and your jealousy, your resentment and pain? Those feelings are gone, I answered. But what if I were glad they were dead? What if I couldn't forgive them? Then you can forgive yourself for not forgiving them. And in that forgiveness, you'll find the compassion that heals the pain of being a human in this world. To call forth such forgiveness when you need it, she added, remember to imagine your friend, lover, or adversary lying dead at your feet, as you will one day lie at the feet of spirit. Then you will see through different eyes, because death is the great equalizer. We are all going to depart this world and leave those we love. We all feel hope and despair. We all share dreams and loss. We are all joined without knowing why in the mystery of life, doing the best we can. Maybe that's what Plato was saying when he wrote, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." Yes, said the sage, now you understand. With that, she walked over to a bed of leaves and lay down. I watched her for a few moments in the fading glow of the fire as the last embers flickered and died. And the next one is the law of faith, trusting in the Spirit. I don't usually say anything about these, but forgiveness and forgiving ourselves is a huge thing. And I'll just point to where I learned this, because it wasn't just in this book. It was a long time ago when I was a kid, and my mom, I just told my buddy this the other day, but I would I sucked at math. I was terrible at math, and I would get hard times by teachers. There were few teachers that I really liked, and a lot of teachers that I didn't. And somebody would give me a problem at school. It's like, they just seem like they're this like the evilest person, or there's politics involved with something, and basically I feel all these things like resentment. I mean, even glimpses of hate, right? Like, why would somebody act this way towards me? Why would they pick on me or make fun of me? Or, why do they single me out in class and everything? And I had an issue with this. And so what my mom would do is we would, at night, when she tucked me in bed and told me that I was going to be great one day, right? Because this is what she would do, and she would bring me some water because I asked her for water, and this was our ritual. She would put me in bed when I was a young kid, right? She was the best mom. And I would tell her everything. And I would tell her about these people, my enemies. And we would pray about it, right? And in the prayer, we would ask God to help them. We would pray for my enemies, for my adversaries. And in doing so, and I didn't realize this, but what we were doing. And then afterwards, you know, all we're doing is praying in my room before I go to sleep. You know, and this is what happens. I change. My mind changes. You know, my mind was captured with resent. My mind was captivated with anger. And even now to think about these emotions, like I can feel them in my body. That your body is a storehouse for all of this. This is why you need to exercise, right? Because your body is gonna store all these things, and then you're gonna have trauma. You're gonna have post-traumatic stress disorder, right? It's gonna turn into something. But when my mom understood that she might not have understood was the law of mental transmutation, from going from one pole to the opposite. And in forgiving my enemies and loving my enemies, for praying for my adversaries, right? And then ultimately, after all of this, just letting go of all of it. And I can't just let it go. I just can't just drop it. I have to give it. I have to give it somewhere. So where do I give it? I give it all to God, right? And I give it up to God. I say, God, it's out of my hands. It's all up to you. And you know what happened every time? And you know what happens every time still? And it might not happen immediately, but things work out. And those adversaries sometimes become friends. Sometimes they get what's coming to them, and all of a sudden they're out of my way, right? Or whatever happens to them, because it's not my job and to pass judgment on them. It's not my job, and it definitely ain't my job to be resentful or angry or hold any of this. I gotta have my mind focused on the now, right? And what's happening now. Oftentimes what's happening now is I need to get out from bottom. I need to get risk control. I need to make sure that that my stance is correct, that I'm moving well. You know, I'm worried about martial arts and becoming the best fighter that I can possibly become. I'm not worried about nothing else. So, you know, that's where my mind is, you know what I'm saying? But the reason why I bring it up is because a lot of times we're not in the driver's seat, you know? We don't. We want to feel good, but we don't. We want to feel relaxed, but we don't. We want to feel strong, but we don't. You know, we want to forget about the past, but we can't. We want to not be anxious about the future, but we are, right? So how do we deal with this? How do we deal with this? Well, come back to the moment and we breathe and we feel whatever we're feeling, right? We feel that. We breathe some more, right? And then we make up our mind. We consciously decide how we're going to react. And oftentimes in practice, this requires slowing down. This, requires doing it over, and getting out of our own way so that way we can improve. Like my coach says, you get better when you improve. And you guys have a good one. Love you.